Okay, so we're going to look at the Berlin airlift. So, just for a little context, if you remember that at the end of World War II, the Allied powers are closing in on Germany. And so the Soviets are moving in from the east towards Germany, and the other Allied powers, particularly under the UK and under the United States, are moving in towards Germany from the west, particularly after the D-Day invasion in June of 1944. They're able to put pressure on that western front of Germany. And so if we start to look at Germany, what ends up happening is that the Soviets take over a good part of the eastern part of Germany, and the British, French, and U.S. Um, army units take over the western part of Germany. We kind of zoom in on Germany a little bit, kind of a different map here. Um, you'll see there that they then decided to divide Germany until the war was over into four zones, if you will. And you can see on the map on the left there, the Soviet Union had the Eastern Zone, and we see in the south and west, France and the United States, and then in the northwest, Britain took over a zone. So we have a divided Germany. And actually, that idea of a divided nation becomes kind of a big deal in the Cold War. We're going to look at a divided Korea and a divided Vietnam much later. And one of the places where they all kind of met was inside the Soviet zone in the city of Berlin. And when we look at Berlin and zoom in on that, they ended up dividing that city into four kind of similar zones. So you're looking at a map on the left, which is the all of Germany, and then you see on the right a zoom in of Berlin, and the city of Berlin is divided sort of in a similar way with four zones. And so you notice that Berlin is well within that Soviet zone. So you have this little chunk of Berlin that is controlled not by the Soviets, but by the French, British, and Americans. And so you have really kind of this little island of democracy after the war because the Soviets decide not to let free elections happen in those territories that they controlled, like Poland and Czechoslovakia, Austria, Romania, and East Germany, as it will become called, that Soviet zone. And in 1948, the Soviets are very concerned that they have this little half of the city of Berlin that is not under their control. It's under French, British, and American control, and then eventually they have free elections, and it's under the control of Germans living there. So in 1948, the Soviets blockade the city. They close off all traffic in and out of the city, which means all food and supplies and everything they need to um, deal with to survive is cut off. And the idea is that then they will surrender to the Soviets. And so President Truman and the leaders of Britain and France come up with what's called the Berlin airlift. They basically decide that they're going to fly in supplies, and they do so for about a year into um, West Berlin. And they will do that in really a response to that policy of containment that okay, the Soviets have taken control of East Germany. There's communist control of even the eastern half of Berlin. But that western half, they will not allow that to fall to communism. And so it's a real kind of economic way to make sure that it doesn't fall to communism. And so the Berlin airlift is highly successful. And you're going to look on the next slide at just some statistics. And I would take a look at that because it's really interesting in terms of how much they spent and um, how much they moved in terms of goods. It's really kind of an amazing accomplishment. And by the summer of 1949, the Soviets actually back off of that and allow for West Berlin to have traffic coming in and out of it. And so the Berlin airlift is considered a big success in terms of containing communism.